What's up, YouTubers and plant lovers? It's Justin, and today I was going to show you how I care for my Wallacea cyanea. Now, you may have heard it called the Tillandsia cyanea, but the most up-to-date classification for this plant is the Wallacea cyanea. The common names for this plant is, of course, the pink quill, and that is because it does kind of resemble like an older writing utensil from way back when. They do call it the fan flower or the blue flowered torch, and that is due to the actual flowers that will come out of the side of these bracts out of the inflorescence. Now those do kind of resemble really small purplish blue beautiful flowers that will actually come out of the sides here, and they do smell a little bit like bubble gum. They are a little fragrant, so that is really kind of sought after, and that's alas why so many people actually buy the plant for this beautiful actually like I called it, inflorescence that actually comes out of the center of the plant. Now the bract or the inflorescence will only last about 4 months or so, and then afterwards it will kind of turn from a very bright, vibrant pink color to a more dull yellowish green color, and then it will ultimately fall off, and that kind of signals that the plant has actually reached the end of the flowering phase. And with an expanse of all its energy, the plant will have one more trick up its sleeve, and that will be to actually produce little pups off to the side. Now, the mother plant at this time will go ahead and die, and you can actually remove the pups to propagate new plants when they are about 3 inches tall. And you can take like a little sharp knife and cut it off, or you can just leave the little pups on and have so many of them kind of build up and make kind of a larger mass of the Wallaceas, and it will really look cool and to actually have a bunch of those pink bracts or inflorescence kind of popping off in this mass of larger Tillandsias or air plants, so to speak. But they do look really cool, and I'll include a picture of that. Sadly, mine is not flowering right now, but if you do hold it up to the light, you can actually see if your plant is getting close to flowering, and I can see little bracts coming out of the sides here for the small flowers. So I would say in probably about a couple of weeks I might get some pretty flowers coming off the sides. And if you notice that your plant isn't actually flowering, you can do two things. One, I would increase the light source for your plant. If yours isn't flowering, it's often because it's not getting the right amount of light, and you need to move it to a brighter location so it will encourage blooming of the flowers. And then if it's really cold in the plant's environment, say below 75 degrees, 75 degrees is the minimal temperature for encouraging your plant to actually bloom. So check the light and check the temperature to see if you can actually encourage yours to actually bloom. Now, as you can tell, this plant, I love the leaves. So if yours flowers and then dies, and you don't want to keep it around, you don't have to, although I would actually encourage you to actually do keep it around, because after it does get its pups and it comes out into a newer plant, the mother plant will actually kind of shrink down and shrivel away, and then you'll be left with a larger kind of same size plant. And these plants usually get anywhere from about 10 to 11 inches wide to about 10 to 11 inches tall too. So you almost get a square foot of Tillandsia, Wallacea. So it is actually a really cool plant, and it doesn't get too large or too wide, and it doesn't take up too much space. But it really does give you that kind of tropical, unique, floral plant that a lot of us really do like. It is beautiful, and it does remind me of the tropics. Now these guys are native to around the rainforest of Ecuador, so kind of like South America. And like I did say, they are from the rainforest. So they are epiphytes. And their roots are kind of small, and they're used mainly for anchoring the plant onto a tree or a crevice or a rock, because they can grow anywhere, mainly out of the soil. But they're normally found under the canopy line, so when it comes to light, you want filtered, dappled, indirect sunlight. You don't want a bunch of direct light coming down and beaming on these little small crunchy thin leaves because they will burn rather quickly. I have mine in a east exposure, and he's done really well there. You know, I do have mine in my plant room, so it does have an east exposure, and throughout the rest of the day I usually kind of supplement with some LEDs to kind of encourage him to flower. I was hoping he would flower before this video. Alas, no luck. But once he does flower, I will go ahead and include the pictures on my Instagram to show all of you what it looks like, because they are stunning when they do flower. They're small yet beautiful, fragrant little flowers. And I love the color, that blue, purple mixed with that kind of pink and the green. It is really spectacular to see. Now, when it comes to water, you got to be a little mindful of how much water you give this plant. They don't normally drink as much water as your normal houseplants do, but for Tillandsias, they really do take a little bit more water than your average Tillandsia will. So for the main part, I usually mist him with a spray bottle about 2 or 3 times a week, depending on the temperature and how hot it is. He's an indoor plant, so I don't have him to where it gets too hot, and he's not by any cold vents or hot vents. So you don't have to worry about it getting too hot indoors, though I do say that, yeah, about 2 to 3 times a week I will go ahead and spray him down on his leaves. But you got to be careful. You don't want to get too much water to trickle down into the base, because if you have too much water sitting down in the base, it can encourage rot, and for you to actually lose your inflorescence here and rot it away. Now, I did say about every 2 to 3 times a week I will spray him down, and then about once a month or so I will kind of throw him in the tub and spray him down to make sure that his actual substrate actually wets a good amount too, and that I go ahead and knock off any kind of pests that may be trying to set up shop in there. Now, these guys don't develop too many pests. It's not common for these guys, but you do have problems normally with scale, aphids, or mealybugs. Although I've had him for quite some time and I've not seen one indication of anything that looks like spider mites or any kind of filaments, but they do have a lot of the leaves that come out through the center of the plant or the crown, so it wouldn't be too much for any kind of pest to get on here and go on down in there and set up shop and kind of infest your plant. But going back to water, I would say you do have to let the substrate dry out before you add too much water. They are from the rainforest, but in that environment they have a lot of evaporation, a lot of sunlight, a lot of humidity, a lot of higher temperatures than a plant would indoors. So it doesn't really bother them too much with root rot in nature, but indoors in a plastic pot where it's not getting all that intense heat, humidity, sunlight, any evaporation, you can succumb to root rot rather quickly. They do have a sensitivity to kind of chlorine and fluoride in tap water, so with mine, I just water him with distilled water. Now, when I do humidity, I always set him next to my humidifier with my orchids and my other humidity-loving plants, and I always use distilled water in my humidifier as well. Now, if you're going to use a pebble tray or a misting bottle, that's fine, although I don't really recommend using a mister to supplement for humidity, just because that is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. These guys like average humidity of around 40% or higher, so unless you're going to be standing there all day and kind of squeezing with the mister, it's really not that beneficial. A pebble tray or a humidifier would work better. Although I'm not going to say that misting wouldn't suffice, it just wouldn't actually do as much as you think it would. So I'm just going to say, if you don't have a pebble tray and you don't have a humidifier and all you do have is a little spray bottle, that would be better than not giving it any humidity at all. But as I said, I would also use distilled water for the humidifier, the pebble tray, and your spray bottle, or any of the above. Now, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but these plants are non-toxic. And that doesn't mean that you should let anything go around and start nibbling on the leaves and the bracts and any of that kind of flowers or anything, because it can cause some stomach cramps, but it won't poison anybody. So the ASPCA does list it as a non-toxic plant for cats and dogs. And my cockatiel has come in and chewed on the leaves a little bit. You can see that there are some broken little leaf tips on here and some damaged areas, and he's been fine. Although I don't normally let him chew on it. It's normally I have it sitting back there in the room, and he'll come in there on my shoulder, and then he'll flutter down and kind of go around. And as I'm straightening a plant up, I'll notice that he's over here chewing on one. Though I do pay attention, so please don't come for me in the comments, because if he is around a plant that is toxic, he is not with me, or I have a cameraman in there to help me keep an eye on him as well. Now we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about propagation with these guys. As I said earlier, your little bract will ultimately, after about 4 or 5 months, turn to a dull kind of green and then fall off, and you'll start to see the pups develop around here as well. And with mine, I had one before and I just left all the pups on. But like I said, if they get to about 3 inches tall and you want to take a sharp knife and sever them off and set them in some kind of like leaf mold or orchid bark, kind of a mixture of the two, and some like moss, that really does help them. And keep it slightly moist to encourage roots, and after a couple of months you'll notice a little bit of root development to actually help it kind of anchor itself down in there, and it will take off. Now, I actually like to leave the pups on and let the plant kind of take its natural route and see what it will turn into, and they do look spectacular. Even if they don't have their bracts that come out, the leaves are really cool and spider-like and wavy, and I think it is a really cool plant that kind of depends on its foliage as well. Now, with mine, I don't feed mine too often. I think I usually feed it about once a month, and I use kind of a Tillandsia air plant fertilizer. I think it's around 17-8-22. And it's like a foliar feed. I kind of put it in a spray bottle and spray the plant down, and then also make sure that it gets into the soil a little bit too, to make sure that the base of the plant and the roots get a little bit of nutrients. As I said earlier, it doesn't really ingest any water or nutrients through the roots, but the base of the plant can actually get a little bit of moisture and some nutrients as well. But for the most part, I do feed it about once a month with kind of a foliar spray, and he's been really happy with that. Now, as long as I've had one, I've never really kind of grown it as an air plant. I've always kind of had them down in the soil or the potting media, if you will. But I've had a friend that says they actually do relatively well as an air plant. So if you want to take them out, he said that he removed the roots and kind of cut them back. And the plant did exhibit a little bit of stress for a little bit, but it did recover nicely and has lived relatively well outside of the potting media as well. So if you want to, you don't have to actually keep yours in the pot like I do and have it kind of shoved down in there with the media, although this is the only air plant that actually will live like that. The rest can kind of just be set on top of rocks or any kind of tree for an epiphyte, or even kind of on top of the soil but not really down in it. But these guys can actually be kind of anchored down into the soil, and that's what kind of makes them unique, along with its actual beautiful pink kind of tropical quill that does pop up and give the plant its common name. Now, going on a recap, I just want to let you know that it does take rather bright indirect sunlight. It doesn't need a whole bunch of bright light. Like I said, mine's in an east exposure, and he seems right as rain, very happy right there. But you really kind of want filtered light. I mean, you could sit it in a south exposure window, but you definitely want to scoot it back by about 2 or 3 feet, and maybe even have some blinds or some curtains that can kind of help filter the light in there as well. Water, you definitely want to let the media dry out in between waterings, and I always use distilled water because these plants are rather sensitive to chlorine and fluoride in the tap water. And of course, you know that soft water has a lot of salts in there too, so always use rainwater or any kind of distilled water to water your Wallacea. I don't feed mine too often. You could go ahead and use a foliar feed like I do, and I think that was around 17-8-22. Amazon's got a bunch of those. I'll put a link in my description box on the ones that I like to use for these air plant fertilizers. And you can kind of just feed them about once a month during the growing season, and they're fine with that. Propagation is very important and very popular with these guys. Like I said, with the bract that comes out, they usually only last for about 4 to 5 months, and then they'll kind of fade and fall off and be forgotten. And then pups will actually begin to come off the side and the base of the plant that you can actually remove or kind of keep on there for kind of a larger, more compacted, really cool plant look that you may see online that people often kind of hang up and make a large mass or a ball, and you'll see several of those inflorescence popping off to give it a really unique kind of look. They don't have too much in the way of pest or disease. If you do see any kind of pest with these guys, it's usually just aphids, spider mites, and scale. So a lot of those you can remove by hand, though scale would be the hardest to actually get rid of. But if you do have a problem with scale, you can send me a message on my Instagram or a comment on here, and I will tell you the best way to actually fight scale back on your plant as well. Humidity levels, you want to keep about 40% or higher, because these guys do like a decent amount of humidity. Brown tips on the leaves typically indicate a dry environment, so humidity is very important with your plant. And as always, I want to give a special shout out to my top tier tree patron, Thuyen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'd also like to thank my newest sapling patron, David. And thank you to any future patrons as well. And if you have any kind of plant questions or just want to get a hold of me, Patreon would be the best way to do that. I'm often bogged down by messages, comments, and emails and things of that nature to actually get back to everyone. Well guys, this has been Justin reminding you that if you can, go out and plant a tree. Let's reforest the world. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know what your favorite Tillandsia is. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button or the bell next to it. That way you'll know anytime that I've uploaded a new video. You guys take it easy, have a good one, and don't forget, always plant prudently. Thank you, YouTube.